Hey, everybody, I'm Matt, lead pastor here at Redemption City, and my wonderful co-host today is Jeffrey Noblet, another founding pastor of Redemption City.
That's me.
Brother from another mother.
That's me.
Longtime friend and worship pastor with us. And with us today, we have Jeanne Massey.
Yay.
Yay.
Can we add applause there, maybe?
Yeah.
In the...
Let's see.
Oh, I bet you can. That's great.
Oh, my goodness.
That's great.
We've been waiting
Which
to
is
use that
what
button.
people will actually do when they see that it's you, Miss Jeanne.
Oh,
So,
funny.
So how long have you been a member here with our church?
Since 1980.
So,
Sarah was 2 years old when we joined South Hills.
so now everybody knows Sarah's age.
Exactly.
That's fantastic.
She was 2 in
So-
1980.
Sarah, her
Hey.
daughter and husband, Sarah's husband and kids all go here, which to the audience who isn't familiar with our church, they may be a little confused by me and Jeffrey are founding pastors, and we're born after 1980.
Yeah, how's the math working?
And so, we merged together as churches just almost a year ago. We're about to celebrate our first merge anniversary.
Woohoo.
So start at the beginning, Miss Jeanne. So kind of tell us, how did you come to faith? How did you grow up?
Okay. I grew up in Corsicana, Texas, not too far
Not
from
too
here.
far? Yeah.
And most of my family is still there on my mom's side and my dad's side, so I go there often. My parents were Christians. I grew up going to church from before I was born, I'm sure. And it was a really small church, so it was like one big family. And if you misbehaved on that back row,
Wasn't just your parents?
it wasn't just your parents, which was up in the choir. My dad led the singing.
Okay.
Oh.
And so there was lots of grandmas out there to control us kids.
Right.
So I had a wonderful Christian upbringing. My parents, like I said, my dad led the singing only because our church couldn't afford anything but the pastor.
Right.
So he did that as long as I can remember until, I was grown and moved. But I went to church camps. I went to a GA camp, and I was, I believe, 7 at the time. And I came to ask Jesus in my heart when I was at GA camp.
Girls in action.
Girls in action.
Yes.
Came home and was so excited to share that with everyone, and was baptized pretty quickly after that. I have really had a very uneventful Christian path.
Love that.
know,
Yeah.
I always, in times of distress and problems, turned to God because I knew that that was the only way to get through whatever we were going through at the time. When I was in youth camp, me and 3 other youth almost drowned in Brazos down in Glen Rose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
Okay,
where we was
yeah.
at. We were all down there just supposed to be wading in the water. We all had on our jeans and sweatshirts. It was fall, and I hit a hole and went under.
Wow.
And one guy that tried to help me, he went under. And before we knew it, there was 4 of us out there struggling, and our youth minister at the time was somehow able to get us all out. And the only thing I can really remember very vividly is when I was going under the water, he was pushing me down.
Oh, gosh.
And I'm thinking, why is he doing that? But he was struggling, so he was pushing me down so he could go up for some air. And I'm thinking, wasn't hurt, don't really feel like I was panicked in a way that a lot of people might have been. But my thought was, what is Larry doing to me? But he got us all 4 back up. One did go to the hospital and was fine, but that was a really strange event that happened as a teenager.
How do you think that shaped you? Do you think that?
I think it was just one of so many things that we go through that you realize God was there.
Right.
Yeah.
and God took care of all of us. He's there no matter where you're at, no matter what you're struggling with. He's there.
Did your, youth ministry can be one of those really great, engaging times, or kind of you're just there because your friends are there? What was your youth ministry experience like?
It was wonderful. We were all, it was such a small group, it was like brothers and sisters
Yeah.
fighting all the time. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it was really great. I had a great childhood.
And then how did they help you in your walk from 7 years old? You said you got saved at 7 years old.
Yeah.
How did you get discipled or grow in your faith at your church?
I don't really remember any discipline going on. It was Southern Baptist, very
Let's
Southern
go.
Baptist,
Very,
very
That's a
at
mouthful.
that
Yeah.
time.
very Southern Baptist.
Italicized bold.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I grew up in the same.
So I don't, just through our leaders and GAs and Sunday school and all of that.
Tell me about your parents. So you said you had a really great childhood. You grew up in a great church. Your parents raised you in church. So tell me about your parents.
They were awesome,
Really?
totally awesome. My mom had Lou Gehrig's,
Oh,
and she passed away right after she turned 61. So she's been gone for a long time. And my dad passed away 2 years later. He had
so how old were you when your dad passed?
30.
So in your 30s.
Yeah, I was in my 30s.
Both
He
parents.
passed away. My mom passed away in 94, and my dad passed away in 96.
Wow.
So,
Long time ago.
and my dad had heart issues. He was he was the youngest of 5 boys, and all of them had heart issues. And so my dad had a massive heart attack after 2 years, but he had been taking care of my mom that whole time.
Yeah.
I've got actually a letter I want you to read at
Oh,
some
good.
point
Yeah.
that my dad, his experience with what he called when time stood still,
Wow.
when he was on the operating table and had a massive heart attack. And they came out and told me and my mom that they didn't know if he was going to make it, but they were taking him to emergency surgery. And he eventually wrote his experience down, and that forever changed the way I looked at death. It was beyond amazing
How so? How did it change the way you looked at death?
because of the simplicity that he wrote everything down and how peaceful, and all the people that he saw waiting for him in heaven.
Wow.
And he's even got a little diagram of where everybody was standing. And he said, Jesus was here, but I could not see his face. He had he had a robe on, but it was turned sideways. But then he pointed out all of our relatives and close friends that he had. But what's so kind of crazy about how God works, when he shared that with CR and I, not too long after he had written it down, we had went down to Waco to visit him, and he said, I've got something that I need to share with y'all. And he was just starting to open up about it because it was just, he kept breaking down every time he would think about it and when he wrote it and stuff. So he shared it with us. And of course, we all had some tears flowing and going on. But after I got that, he had written it down in a spiral notebook. It was kind of like in the middle of
Handwritten.
handwritten.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in his writing. And so I got that notebook once they had both passed. And so I made a bunch of copies. Do you know that I never could find those copies? And to this day, I can't find that notebook.
Huh.
But when CR passed away, I thought about that letter and I wanted to read it. And I could not find it. I went through every room in my small little house that I have now. Could not find it anywhere. And I said, I know every time we've come across it, I'm like, I'm putting this where I will find it.
Yeah.
Never could find it.
Wow.
So several months after CR had passed, I was cleaning out our nightstands and going through stuff. And we always kept cards that we had both sent to each other. And they were piled in
That's awesome.
everywhere.
Yeah.
There wasn't any one place. And I had a pile in my drawer. And I was going through there. And there was a letter from a friend of ours that had sent us a copy of what Dad had shared with her.
No.
This envelope addressed to CR and I was in the middle of a bunch of these cards that I was going through that CR had sent me. I'm like,
How does it get here?
I would not have put that
Right.
in the middle of, it just did not make any sense. So I called Sarah immediately. I'm like, you're not going to believe this. And we both just started boohooing.
Yeah.
So I'm working with her now on Mondays, helping her in the office. And so I took it up there and I said, we're making copies of this one
Right now.
Yes.
since we can't find the others. And I'm telling you right now, this is going in the safe
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah.
with all of our other papers
Right.
that you will need at some point.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
I'm like,
What a gift.
But God's timing, I needed it then probably more than I needed it when I wanted to see it,
Yeah.
right after CR passed away. So it's just,
Yeah.
God works in really mysterious ways.
I love the way that you describe your parents, and I love that you had an uneventful testimony. That's what I pray for my kids. That they,
Yeah. Right.
I did not. There's a lot of twists and turns in my testimony, and
Yeah.
and everyone ends with sadness until I go back to Jesus, And so I love that, and I love the way you talk about how, as your dad passed, and as he had sort of the vision that there was this real peace. The great Christian men I've known as they age, that's the word I would put on them. Is there's this
Yeah.
increasing peace and freedom.
Right.
And so you mentioned CR a couple times. That was her husband.
Mm-hmm. Yep. CR. Yeah, and you
45 years.
yeah, I was going to say,
45 years.
Tell us about y'all's relationship.
I've heard stuff of legend. I mean, I've heard so much about.
And let's just be honest, that's the coolest name you can have.
CR.
I know it's
Well-
not his real name. And I've
No,
heard
it's
there's some
not.
legends around
It's
the
not
name.
his real name.
Yeah.
And we're still kind of baffled at how he got his first name because,
Really?
it just does not make any sense whatsoever.
Okay.
So, anyway,
Yeah.
he was one of 5 and he was
Okay.
the middle. And his sister was named Helen. And then his brothers was named Charles, Frank, and Billy.
And CR. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, that was not his name.
Yeah.
He went by CR, his initials. His first name was Clemeth.
Clemeth.
Now, how in the world would you name your middle child Clemeth and everyone else has a normal
Billy.
name?
Yeah.
Billy,
Yeah.
Frank.
Feeling inspired that
We're
day.
like, there had to be a postman or something
So
going
he didn't
on.
like Plymouth, so he went with CR.
He didn't mind Clemeth.
Okay.
His family still called him Clemeth up till he passed. But when he got out to working and stuff, he went by the initials of CR.
Yeah.
So I've heard he was
Clemeth Ray.
I've
Yeah.
heard he was hilarious. Life of the everybody at South, the version of our church, South Hills, just
He was a very laid back, easygoing. Nothing bothered him at all. Just kind of go with the flow. Was kind of a peacemaker,
wow.
trying to steer others away from all the junk that
Yeah,
was
right. Yeah.
going on and whatever. But we had a New Year's Eve party at our house that we started probably early 90s. We had it for about 20-something years before our group started to where staying up past midnight was not the thing to
Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
even though we still did it.
I just hit that age, by the way. I'm like,
Oh, you're too young for
see y'all
that.
Too
next
soon.
year.
Too
Oh,
See y'all
soon.
next year. Yeah.
No. There was, yeah.
You think I need to make okay? I'll make more of an effort this year. I'll see if I can see midnight this year, just for you.
Oh, yeah, you've got to do that.
I wish the audience could see the sheer disappointment in
She's
your
like,
face with me.
no.
I just, yeah.
He's only
I mean,
40.
He's 40. I just
Yeah.
turned 70.
Yeah.
Hey, that's
In August,
Right. Yes,
so-
I remember.
I had a hard time with that number, and I decided that 70 was the new 60
Yeah,
I like it.
There you go.
because
It's all in the
I
mindset.
couldn't wrap my head around that number. It's the new 60.
I like it.
So you can make New Year's Eve, surely. We would have the horns, the poppers, everything.
thing.
They made a mess of my floor. And we have pictures of guys on the floor on their knees, trying to
Clean up.
get all the
Yeah.
confetti stuff up. And as soon as the last one was out the door, which was sometimes around 1:30 or 2, I was like, let's just go to bed. And he was like, oh no, we can do this real quick. We can clean off all this mess, put everything in the dishwasher. And he would start cleaning it up, and I'm like, ah. So that was one of his things that he looked forward to every
Wow.
year.
Yeah.
He loved. And one year, he was sick, and he would not let me call it off until about, and I kept telling him, honey, we've
It's not
got to call everyone and let them know.
Yeah.
I mean, he was running fever, so they didn't need to be there.
Yeah.
And he kept waiting for about an hour before everybody was supposed to get here for me to call and say, hey, we just can't do it tonight.
He just
Sorry.
wanted to see his people.
He wanted to be with the gang and have fun, and we played dominoes and whatever and did weird games. And
Yeah.
So good.
Was he involved? I'm assuming, but how was he involved up here at church?
he was a deacon of the church. He, in his younger days, had taught Sunday school, a boys' class, but mainly just being a deacon and taking care of those that needed
Yeah.
How'd y'all meet?
whatever. That's probably not for discussion.
That's fine. Hey,
Good
we
for
all,
you.
we all
Hey.
got a past,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and that was
That's great.
that was one thing that we never really talked about and shared with anyone.
Yeah.
We asked God to take over, and He did. And I know one of the things that CR kept through all the years that we were married, saying, I don't know why God has blessed me so much, because I don't deserve, None of us do. But
Yeah.
he was always very thankful, very prayerful. There was times when I was working at Ben Hogan Golf Company. I worked there for about 18 years, and I was in the payroll department, and our boss at the time was a divorcee, and she was the type of person that she was miserable, and she wanted everyone else to be miserable. And so I had went to the mailroom one day after a bunch of chaos that was going on, and I called him and I said, just want to give you a heads up here.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can stay here today. I may be walking out. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that bad?
And it was just that bad. And he said, honey, hang in there and you do whatever you feel like you need to do. But he said, I'm going to be praying for you. And I said, okay. So not long after that, felt this peace that we always find. And I ended up staying. A week later, an opening came up in personnel, and I got that job. And her and I became really close friends.
How about that? Yeah.
Isn't that
Yeah,
amazing?
that is amazing.
I mean, she was not my best friend,
Right.
but
Right.
she just talked, and it's like I was a whole new person. And I'm like, where were you
water's just
2
parted
years
before-
ago?
yeah,
Or
Right. And she was going through such pain in her life, like you were saying. So
Yeah.
that's amazing you stayed,
Yeah. So then I ended up being in personnel then till they closed.
Yeah.
I love the perspective that he had of just repeatedly stopping and going, how good is, we've
Oh,
got
yeah.
it.
Oh, yeah. And he said that many times, many times. I recall him just, wow,
And so what I think of maybe a young person listening to this and thinking that's what I want a marriage like that. I want a family like that. I want a life like that. And so how did y'all build that,
through church. through friendships and through staying close to God. When we would go on vacations or whatever, and before we would leave the driveway, we would pray before we. And he got that from my dad. My dad always did that. And we traveled with them some. And so he did that. And then we started traveling with two different couples. One, the Andersons, Sharon and John Anderson. And then Joanne and Jim Floyd, which Jim Floyd just passed away not too long ago, and Joanne's not coming. But we started traveling with them, and CR still stopped. And I can remember Joanne saying, wow, that really blessed me. She said, I know that Jim and I pray separately, silently, but to stop and designate that time to say, hey, we need to pray for our trip.
Yeah. There was a study recently that came out that it was something like couples that pray together have a 98% staying together rate of something wild like that.
Wow.
And so I love all the little, the little things,
It was so many little things.
Yes. Pray before you drive, traditions on New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Stop to be grateful. All those, what seem like little things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you've mentioned Sarah, and we know who Sarah is, but tell us
Yes.
more about your family, and then also kind of in that same theme of how you and CR raised your kids, the decisions you made, and all that.
Well, when I first found out I was expecting, CR said, and of course we have a big age gap. He says, I'm praying that it's going to be a girl because I won't be here probably to see her graduate from school. Or, he just
Was
had already thinking ahead that, hey, I probably won't. Well, he got to walk her down the aisle, see our grandkids.
Wow.
Amazing.
So, and that was something that he never, ever even dreamed would happen.
Yeah.
But he was hopeful that it was going to be a girl because it would be easier for me to raise her as a single mom
What a
instead of.
thought.
Care in that too. Yeah.
To think
And
forward.
so, yeah,
And she was.
she was.
Dreams come true here. Yeah.
Dreams come true. Yes, and we did not know beforehand either, like
Okay.
so many find out now.
Yeah, right.
It was like he holds her up and she looks like a football player.
Yeah.
Don't tell her I said that.
Yeah.
I told her that
Yeah.
too, though, so she knows. She was so 9, 3.5.
She came ready.
Big baby.
She was ready.
She was
She was ready to play football or whatever. But she does not like any sport. She's not athletic at all. Inclined. She tried to be, but no, she's not. Yeah, held her up. It's a girl.
Yeah.
And we just both started screaming and crying. But,
Yeah.
it was a girl. And he was the apple of her eye and could do no wrong and was a daddy's girl and spoiled rotten.
As it should be.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah, I've seen some of her posts on Facebook and all that. It seems like they were so close, and I love that seeing that relationship.
She loved her
as she gets
daddy.
older and stay close. Now, did they move away for a while? Is that right, Sarah and Brian? And then
No, Sarah and Brian, this is her second marriage. Brian had never been married.
okay,
She married right out of high school, unbeknownst to what we would want. He was in the Air Force, and she moved to Abilene.
okay,
So she was in Abilene for a while until they divorced. And she moved back home for a little while and then moved to her apartment. And her and Brian met. And Brian is maybe about 85% like CR.
Wow.
really,
A lot of similarities.
What a compliment.
I know.
Very
I was gonna say.
easygoing.
Yeah,
Things bother Brian more than
85%,
CR.
not quite 100. Yeah.
Yeah, not quite 100. But they were perfect together, and I'm so thankful
I love them.
that she found him. And, he cares so much about her and those kids.
I was gonna say you got some amazing grandkids too.
Yeah, I do.
Oh, and last Wednesday night, so your oldest you know this, I'm telling the audience, your oldest grandchild, he's 15?
He'll be 15 in January.
Okay. And he's really, so he came up to me. I spoke to the students, and he came up after. He's like, hey, I've been trying to read the Bible, and he's asking me all these really great, insightful questions, and he's really been digging into the Word. So he's growing a lot right now. So just before we started recording, Miss Jeannie kind of warned me, like, hey, I'm going through some grief, and so who knows what might happen. And so, which is where so many people are,
Right. Yep.
you know, in our church. What would you tell someone in our church about clinging to Christ through your grief, or how would you?
Just be in constant prayer. I know toward the end, when I knew that it was getting really close, that he probably wouldn't be with us much longer, I just asked God to always be with me and to not let me stray. Because I knew how easy, the devil works
Right.
in those times. And my prayer was always constantly, God, don't let me stray. Keep me close to you. And I know that you'll see me through this just like he saw me through so many other things.
Right.
I know you'll see me through it.
I know.
Remind me again. God, I know it. Now remind me again. And I know it.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's a prayer he always answers, I would say, too, because that is God's heart for us, just to stay close,
Exactly.
And so why wouldn't he? First of all, he hears us all the time, but answer that prayer. That's in line with his heart,
Right.
for you. So that's a simple, like you're asking, what can people do that are listening? That's a simple prayer that God will always honor. Keep me close. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
As we kind of round through, are there any other things about your story or history is there anything else that you kind of thought about before you got here that you wanted
Now I
to share?
was petrified.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, what did I say yes to?
The original idea of this was like, this is what we get to do all the time. I'll take somebody to coffee and I'll go, so how'd you grow? And they share. And all the time I'm left thinking, I wish our whole church knew this. And it's really going to bless so many people, especially with us merging in January. We don't know when this is going to air, but merging in the past.
Yeah.
There's so many people that this is going to bless and then when they see you in the hallways and in the worship center to go, hey, and they,
She's
we kind of
that
catch
weirdo.
it. I doubt that's what they say, But I love you, and I'm just so glad that God brought our churches together so that
Me too.
we could.
It's really been a blessing. I absolutely love it.
Me too.
Me too. Yeah.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
I love you. God so loves you.
I love you too.
It's Jeannie, everybody.
Are we done?